Hands are not for hitting.
Literally like zero doubt in my mind why lifelong career teachers are just up and quitting their jobs because they can't manage these monster Gen Alphas you're sending them. And I want to talk about it as a Gen Z who nannied for the better part of a decade and originally wanted to be a teacher and grew up with a very dismissive parent, just like the woman in this video. Because first of all, not an absolute second of gentle parenting was accomplished in that video that you lazily just decided to title Gentle Parenting Isn't for Everyone. But we will get to that. Possibly more concerning is that throughout the video she keeps saying hands are not for hitting, but then you openly admit in the caption that you later went and put your hands on that child. Which proves to me that a lot of the behavior the child exhibits in this video is probably learned from the home. And furthermore, the thousands of parents in the comment section agreeing that they also would have physically harmed the child and that they think that this is what gentle parenting is and that's why they're not about it. Very quick summary, gentle parenting is like teaching your kids how to manage these emotions, guiding them through it, and being very hands-on in the moment. So what you are doing would be best described as uninvolved parenting, but I call it dismissive parenting because I think it's even worse than uninvolved parenting. Because it can have even worse effects on your psychological development into adulthood than just uninvolved parenting. I don't think I need to dive into why spanking has been proven time and time again to not be effective, but it does immediately teach your child that when you feel like you've lost control of a situation, it's okay to physically harm someone. And that's obviously really bad, especially if you continue to grow up into adulthood and don't correct these lessons. And on top of that, yes, toddlers and small children, when they get angry, they often resort to like hitting and whatnot when they feel like they can't communicate their words, which is why it's important for you to teach them to communicate and help them, which you didn't do in this video. So you can't always say that hitting is learned behavior, but when you openly admit it, we know that they're learning to react that way in the home. And also later in the video, when she comes up and grabs you and then later tries to kind of like swat you, that's very clearly the child mimicking what I have seen parents do, in which they grab the kid right before they spank them. She's discovered, right, that she can't make you do what she wants you to do, so she comes up and does what you do to her in those scenarios. Going back to addressing the fact that none of this is gentle parenting, but it's actually dismissive parenting, we did kind of pretend to copy the basic guidelines of gentle parenting when a child is throwing a tantrum, but you didn't actually execute them properly. Luckily, you did remain calm, so that's good. But something I noticed repeatedly throughout the video is the child is reaching out to you, kind of begging to you, trying to communicate, but not exactly finding the words, and you are ignoring her. Which would be a crucial part of step 2, find the root cause of like why this is really an issue. Now, I can't be of much help there because obviously this tantrum is like a subsect of a different tantrum, and that's why you've decided locking her outside on the porch and sitting there and mocking her is going to be helpful, which is the part we'll pretend was you attempting step 3, which was listen and validate the child's feelings. Although you weren't really listening to her or trying to communicate her in any way at all, you were just saying like vague textbook phrases at her whilst completely ignoring her and disassociating from the situation. Which you can tell is causing the child a lot of frustration because she's getting angrier and angrier throughout the video because it doesn't seem like you're even trying to listen to her. Which again, in gentle parenting is where you would step in and try and like find the root of the problem and decompress and calm her down and teach her how to regulate that anger instead of escalating it by just repeatedly saying the same thing over and over to her that's making her angry. If you are truly exhausted at that point, what would have been a better option was to just like remove yourself from the room and put her in a different room so that she can throw that tantrum and come to you when she's done to talk about it. But no, you sat there and egged her on, which again escalated it. Which means you never got to the next part, which was like kind of hugging and calming down and regrouping and redirecting. Which would be like the resolution and what are we going to do going forward and what are we doing now. And I really can't emphasize enough as someone who had a very dismissive parent growing up, right? The parent that would sit there in the room but not actually paying attention to you and just be like, you're fine. It's like, just be nice, behave. And it would escalate the situation into them thinking they needed to then physically harm me to get me under control. This is the point in your child's life in which you as the adult, as their leader, are supposed to be walking them through these emotions and teaching them how to regulate them because kids are not inherently born knowing how to regulate their emotions. And if they do not learn that at this young age, they will grow up not knowing how to regulate emotions and be forced to do that later in therapy, and it will create a ton of other problems in their life as well.